They're already calling it the Gaza Strip. This is beyond anything anyone ever imagined. President Trump once again stunned the world by announcing last night that the United States is going to take over the Gaza Strip, rebuild it into the Riviera of the Middle East for a thriving international population, and finally bring a lasting peace to the Middle East. I mean, the international reactions to the proposal has spanned from excited astonishment to abject mockery, right? From jaw-dropping admiration to indignant outrage. I really appreciate historian Larry Schweikert's admonition to all of us. He's got sort of a threefold golden rule with Trump. First, always wait 48 hours after he announces something that seems unimaginable. It'll tend to flesh itself out in that time period. Second, Trump always has a larger play in mind. So think of the tariffs, for example. So this is 4D chess. And third, think of the absolute worst thing that could come out of the policy proposal. Then imagine the exact opposite, and that is likely what you'll get. So I think that's some sage advice coming from Sir Schweikert. So with that in mind, here's what I think is really happening with Trump's Gaza takeover proposal. Let's start by taking a look at what President Trump himself actually said.
The only reason the Palestinians want to go back to Gaza is they have no alternative. It's right now a demolition site. This is just a demolition site. Virtually every building is down. They're living under fallen concrete that's very dangerous and very precarious. They instead can occupy all of a beautiful area with homes and safety, and they can live out their lives in peace and harmony instead of having to go back and do it again. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
So the first thing you'll note here is that this is something that Trump said earlier yesterday, is that he wants all 2 million Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip to basically leave. He wants them to leave and relocate somewhere else in the Middle East, Egypt, Jordan, the Emirates, wherever. He doesn't care. They just need to leave. And his rationale for that is that Gaza is simply too dangerous to stay in. The buildings are all either destroyed or on the verge of collapse. But even more than that, the sociocultural conditions in Gaza are such that the current peace deal that he secured, the ceasefire, is just a reprieve. Eventually, we all know, the whole world knows, hostilities will flare up again and we'll have another war. It's just a matter of time. Hamas will guarantee that. And if not Hamas, some other group will step into the power vacuum financed by Iranian and Hezbollah influences. So you've got an infrastructure problem in Gaza and you've got an ideology problem. That's the twofold problem that needs to be resolved as far as Trump is concerned. An infrastructure problem and an ideology problem. And Trump's proposal for the United States to take over Gaza, this incredibly bold, audacious vision, seeks to solve both these problems simultaneously once and for all in such a way that would bring a golden age to the region. And by the way, speaking of, I'm so excited to officially announce our America's Golden Age Summit. Mark your calendars for this. It's February 27th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. It's a 90-minute online live event that'll explore how President Trump's historic leadership is helping create a new golden age in America and how you can thrive in it. I've got some incredible special guests, real experts who are going to reveal some powerful secrets for how to prosper financially, secure your family's future, and build a legacy rooted in freedom and faith. Now, spaces are limited, so don't wait. Click on that link to register right now to secure your spot, and I can't wait to see you there. All right, so President Trump's bold, audacious proposal seeks to resolve both Gaza's infrastructure problem and their ideological problems. How so? First and foremost, he talked about rebuilding Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East. So it appears that he's envisioning a total makeover for Gaza, akin to something like Dubai, which is obvious. It's a very new city. It began development in the early 2000s, and the city quickly emerged as a mix of dazzling modern architecture, extravagant shopping experiences, and a key feature that Trump touched on. It is an international city with the vast majority of residents from outside of the United Arab Emirates. But the last feature is key here for solving the ideological problem. It really does appear that Trump wants to, in effect, dilute Hamas's influence in the region by transforming Gaza's population into a far more international population. And to do this, he would enlist the help particularly of Saudi Arabia, perhaps the Emirates as well. But the idea here appears to be that the Saudis would fund and engineer and help build this makeover of Gaza. They would be intricately involved in the reconstruction of Gaza and provide the cosmopolitan allure for the region, again, under the directing auspices of the United States. And as such, this project would be really the first full realization of the Abrahamic Accords, which helped to broker peace and steps towards normalization between the Saudis and the Israelis. That, of course, was interrupted after October 7th and Israel's retaliation. And again, of course, what this would ideally do, this project of creating a Riviera of the Middle East, is it would further bring the Saudis and Israel together in the region under the watchful eye, as it were, the United States, which would be responsible for sort of regulating the field of play. Now, the Saudis are right now publicly saying that they want nothing to do with this. They're not even remotely interested in talking with Israel until Israel acknowledges a Palestinian sovereign state, the so-called two-state solution, which, in fairness here, is the international consensus. Virtually the entire world believes that there must be a two-state solution, which would give the Palestinians their own sovereign nation by returning to them the land Israel annexed in 1967 after the so-called Six-Day War. And so this would include Gaza, the West Bank, East Jerusalem. They would both share their capital in Jerusalem as well. The problem, as I'm sure you surmised, is that Israel simply is not and will not budge on that. Again, the key to make sense of that is one of the two states isn't agreeing to that at all. No one in Israel is even remotely thinking about a two-state solution at this point, let alone talking about it. As far as the right-wing nationalist government of Israel is concerned, those annexed regions belong to Israel, and Israel's control of those regions are absolutely vital to their national security. They are never, ever giving them up. And Israel's demography is only guaranteeing that the nation is going to continue to move right. I mean, Israel is one of the few nations going through a baby boom right now. They average more than 3 children per couple, and the vast majority of those children are born to Orthodox Jewish families. And so as a result, the nation's politics have become, in effect, theocratic of late. Many have argued that Israel, under the surge of Orthodox Jewish influence, has become, in effect, a constitutional theocracy, very much akin to Egypt and Pakistan and Iraq and Kuwait, and Yemen, Nigeria, Malaysia, Tunisia, Turkey, right? The movement, the trajectory around the world is towards more religion and more nationalism. That's what John Mearsheimer, of the University of Chicago, talks about often, that the two most powerful forces in the world right now are religion and nationalism, not globalism, not liberalism, nationalism and religion. And both have taken root in Israel really like nowhere else. So Trump is in effect saying this: we can't go back. We can't default to the status quo in the region because that's only going to guarantee bringing us back to where we always end up, which is more war, more conflict, more death. We can't default to the status quo in Gaza. But, and this is key for Trump, neither is the two-state solution even remotely within the realm of reality. Sorry, world, you have to come to that realization. Because of the inconvenient fact that one of the two key players in that two-state solution wants nothing to do with it and will never, at least for the foreseeable future, will never want anything to do with it. So you can bellyache until you're blue in the face over the necessity of a two-state solution. It's just simply not happening. That's actually just more status quo. So what do we do in the face of that? We can't go back to defaulting to the status quo, and there's no possibility of a two-state solution. Trump's solution is let's have the United States come in, basically take over Gaza in cooperation with the Saudis, with the Emirates, with the more enterprising forces in the region, rebuild it into a thriving city with an international population where the Palestinians could still live, but whose ideological radicalism would get diluted by a more enterprising and capitalistic international population. And as such, we can finally bring lasting peace to the Middle East. We solve both the problem, the infrastructure problem, the ideological problem together in the same project and bring peace to the Middle East. I got to admit, it's an incredibly bold and visionary proposal. Now, of course, it's in line with Trump's obsession to find a way of bringing peace to the Middle East. It was one of his first accomplishments in his first administration, the Abraham Accords, and he clearly wants to take that to the next level here. Of course, as far as Netanyahu is concerned, he'd much rather have the United States as his neighbor than Hamas, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. And at the very least, the audacity of the proposal will hopefully encourage regional Arab nations to take proactive steps to claim ownership and responsibility for Gaza's redevelopment, if at least it were to prevent direct U.S. involvement. Again, the notion here seems to be Trump wants to spark a cooperative effort among the more enterprising Arab nations to start getting financially, entrepreneurially, and diplomatically involved in the rebuilding of Gaza. And if that's the case, if that really does happen as a result of this proposal, maybe this is it. Maybe we will indeed see the realization of a lasting peace in the region, which means that the Middle East may have the opportunity to realize their own golden age as well.